Well, it's been nearly 2 years since someone threw acid on a young woman from Long Island, leaving her severely burned. Today, she spoke out, pleading for anyone with information to come forward.
Yeah, to find her attacker. Reward leading to an arrest has been increased substantially. James Ford has more from Elmont on Long Island.
You shouldn't have to take money for you to be a good person at heart and just be like, damn, this girl is going through so much, let me have some mercy, and just tell the police officers who did this, because that's wrong.
Nafia Ikram speaks to her attacker and anyone who knows who that attacker is on the day that law enforcement and elected officials made this announcement.
Somebody knows something. We're offering you up $50,000 if you come forward with information that leads to the arrest and conviction of this individual.
That's up from $10,000 initially, which rose to $20,000 and then $30,000 in this crime that happened around 7:40 on the night of March 17th, 2021. That's when this suspect, a man she didn't know, who's about 6 feet 2 inches tall, thin build, and wearing a dark hoodie and gloves, ran up to Ikram and threw muriatic acid in her face.
Like, I just recently had a surgery where my sutures were so tight I couldn't even fit a straw in my mouth for almost a week. I've had 8 surgeries so far, and I don't know how many more I'm going to continue to have.
The suspect sped off on Lucille Avenue in Elmont in a red Nissan Altima, a 2013 to 2015 model, according to flyers sent out in English and Arabic to this multi-ethnic community, of which Nafia Ikram is a part, but, she says, not fully at this point.
Why am I this paranoid that someone's going to break in and attack me? It's because this person's still out there. So that's literally what it comes down to. And as a 23-year-old, think about how inhumane it feels to have to live your life like that.
Nafia Ikram says she wants the world to know her status as part of an effort to stop acid attack crimes. About 1,200 are reported yearly worldwide, although experts say more than that go unreported every year. 80% of the attacks are on women like Ikram.
I'm grateful that my case came to this level so that in the future I'd be able to help other people that went through something similar traumatically like I did.
She said that information showing that search warrants, interviews, electronic surveillance, and other work done with the FBI all make her feel that the investigators are getting close to finding whoever did this to her. She said she feels satisfied, at least for now. Reporting from Elmont on Long Island, I'm James Ford, Pix 11 News.
What would make a man, a college student, no criminal record, weeks away from becoming a nurse, pay someone to throw acid in a woman's face? 2 dates. That is all it was. 2 dates. No relationship, no breakup, no confrontation. She simply went out with him twice, saw enough to know she did not want to continue, and quietly walked away. That was it. That was the whole story between them. And according to prosecutors, that decision, that quiet, reasonable, completely normal decision, sent him into something so dark, so calculated, that it would take nearly 5 years, a rap song, and a Crime Stoppers tip to finally unravel. Her name is Nafia Ikram, and this is her story. Elmont, Long Island, a quiet suburb sitting about 15 miles east of Manhattan, home to around 36,000 people. The kind of neighborhood where people know their neighbors, kids grow up on the same blocks, and life moves at a steady, unremarkable pace. That is where the Ikram family built their life. Nafia's father, Sheikh Ikram, had immigrated from Pakistan roughly 3 decades earlier and made his home right there in Elmont. He worked as a personal driver for celebrity chef Padma Lakshmi, someone who would later describe the family as people she had known and genuinely cared about for over a decade. Her mother, Shirina Muhammad, was a nurse practitioner. Between the two of them, they had built something real, something stable, and their daughter, Nafia Fatima Ikram, was the living proof of what that stability produced. Now, people say things like, she was special after something terrible happens. It becomes the thing you say. But with Nafia, it was visible long before any of this. She graduated high school in 2018 and enrolled at Hofstra University in Hempstead, Long Island, chasing a pre-med degree with a specific goal already in her head. She wanted to become a doctor, and she was not just talking about it. Alongside a full university course load, she was already working as a pharmacy technician at CVS, pulling shifts that sometimes stretched to 10 hours, saving money, building experience, doing the actual unglamorous work that most people serious about medicine do quietly, without fanfare. Padma Lakshmi, speaking about Nafia after the attack, described her as an innocent, young, promising girl. And the people who knew her personally would tell you that description, simple as it sounds, was exactly right. She was hardworking, faith driven, and close to her parents, a young woman with a plan and the discipline to execute it. Moving on, by the autumn of 2020, Nafia was a junior at Hofstra, and that plan was very much on track. And that is where Shaquille Coe enters this story. Coe was also a Hofstra University student at the time. Brooklyn born, and by the surface impression he gave most people, he appeared to be someone with direction. He was pursuing a nursing degree. He had no criminal record. The two crossed paths on campus in the latter part of 2020, and over the following months, they went on two outings together, one of which Nafia would later confirm was on Valentine's Day.
You had no contact with that individual after those two outings.
Now, here is what Nafia herself said about those outings in her own words. I don't really think that that's like a we went on a date kind of thing. I feel like Valentine's could be like you go on Valentine's and you go out with a male friend if you guys are just platonic, it's just to have a Valentine. So, yeah, by her own description, this was not even a clearly defined romantic relationship. It was two outings. And after those two outings, Nafia saw enough red flags to walk away. She stopped contact. She moved on. She went back to her life, her shifts, her coursework, her goals. That should have been the end of it. It was not. What Nafia did not know was that Coe's response to her walking away was anything but quiet. According to prosecutors, rather than accepting her decision and moving on, Coe became fixated, and that fixation drove a series of calculated actions in the weeks that followed. Prosecutors alleged that Coe created a fake Snapchat account, reportedly under the name Wezi Darrell, and used it to contact Nafia directly, posing as someone else entirely. The goal, according to prosecutors, was to get her to admit that she had been unfaithful to him, a man she had gone on two dates with, trying to manufacture a betrayal from a connection that by Nafia's own account had never been serious in the first place. And when Nafia told the fake account that her connection with Coe had never been serious, prosecutors say that response only deepened his obsession, like, make it make sense. Here is what makes this case almost impossible to sit with. Coe was not someone acting out of visible desperation. He had no prior criminal record. He was studying nursing. By early 2026, he was reportedly just weeks away from qualifying as a registered nurse. By every outward measure, he was building a credible future. And yet, what prosecutors allege he did next was not impulsive. It was not a moment of blind rage. It was, allegedly, a deliberate, step by step decision made by someone who knew exactly what he was doing and took careful steps to distance himself from it. And that is where Terrell Campbell comes in. Campbell was 24 years old at the time of the attack, a Brooklyn native. He and Co. had known each other since their days together at Nazareth Regional High School in Brooklyn, where Campbell had been a standout athlete, a defensive end and team captain who earned all league honors and went on to play college football at Anna Maria College in Massachusetts. By March 2021, he was back in Brooklyn, living with his mother, working as a flower delivery driver, and pursuing what he described as a music career under the rap name Young Based Prince. Like Co., Campbell had no prior criminal record. Prosecutors alleged that in the weeks leading up to the attack, Co contacted Campbell, his old high school friend, and communicated that he wanted something devastating to happen to Nafia, that karma would take care of her, and that he intended to take that karma into his own hands. Allegedly, Campbell agreed to be the person who carried it out. Anyways, by the time March 17th, 2021 arrived, the plan was already in motion, and Nafia had no idea. She had just finished a 10-hour shift at the CVS in Baldwin. She got into the car with her mother for the drive home to Arlington Avenue in Elmont. The same route, the same driveway, the same ordinary Tuesday evening she had lived dozens of times before. But this time, someone was waiting. Cell phone records would later show that Campbell and Co. had been in communication throughout the entire day of March 17th, 2021, coordinating, and that the two had met approximately 1 hour before the attack. By the time Nafia and her mother pulled into the driveway at around 8:30 that evening, a red Nissan Altima was already in position nearby, waiting. As Nafia's mother stepped inside to use the restroom, Nafia stayed by the car to collect her belongings. Just a few seconds, that is all it was supposed to be. And that is when she noticed him, a man standing at the end of the block near the stop sign, arms crossed, just watching her. She described that moment herself. See a man standing there like arms crossed, creeped out. Just something about him made me feel like death was like right in front of me or something. That's like the most accurate description of what I can explain it to be, because there's no other way I can explain it. She started walking down the driveway, and she heard footsteps behind her. She said she felt he was close, really close, so she turned, and he was literally 1 foot away from her. Before she could process what was happening, he threw the contents of a white cup directly into her face and ran. The substance was 70% sulfuric acid. In the 5 seconds it took her brain to catch up to what her body already knew was wrong, her face started burning. When she screamed from the shock and the pain, the acid traveled down her throat. Her esophagus was burnt, permanent scarring left behind in places you cannot see and cannot fix with a single surgery. The acid left burn marks seared into the concrete of that driveway, a detail that tells you everything you need to know about the concentration of what was used. This was not a warning. This was not a scare tactic. Whoever mixed that cup wanted to destroy her. As Nafia stumbled inside, crying out for her father, the residual chemicals still on her skin and clothing transferred to both her parents' hands as they rushed to reach her. And it was her mother's medical training as a nurse practitioner that proved immediately critical. Shirina pulled Nafia to the bathroom and began flushing the affected areas with water right away, diluting the chemical reaction before it could penetrate further. When emergency responders arrived, the scene they walked into was serious enough that stabilizing Nafia before transport became the immediate priority. Her airway was compromised from the internal chemical injuries. Her right eye had already sustained damage that doctors would later confirm was permanent. In the ambulance, a paramedic tried to get an IV line in to start a morphine drip for the pain. He could not get the vein, and he made the call that no one wants to make. He told her, "I'm sorry, this is going to burn. I can't get the morphine in, but if I don't do this, and I try to fuss with your vein, your face is just going to burn more, so I'm going to have to do this." And he poured saline directly onto her face, repeatedly. She described it as feeling like she was blacking out from the pain, fading in and out. She said if the ambulance had not arrived when it did, if they had not gotten oxygen to her in time, she would have died. The burn doctors and trauma team at Nassau University Medical Center found themselves in immediate disagreement about how to manage her airway safely. The injuries were that complex, that severe. Nafia spent roughly 3 weeks in the hospital, beginning in intensive care. Doctors told her family early on that she was not even halfway through what would be a years long medical journey. She had lost the sight in her right eye permanently. The scarring in her throat was severe enough that she would need routine procedures for years just to keep her airway open enough to breathe and eat normally. And somewhere across the city in Brooklyn, the man who had thrown that cup was searching on his phone. How do I remove sulfuric acid from my car's fabric? But investigators would not know that for a long time, because first the case had to go cold. From day one, Nassau County Police, the FBI, and the NYPD launched what would become one of the longest and most frustrating unsolved cases in Nassau County history. Nafia told police about Shakil Coe immediately. He was the only person she had any kind of romantic connection to, however brief, and he was placed in the circle of people investigators looked at right away. But when they brought him in for questioning in the weeks following the attack, Coe denied any involvement calmly, without giving investigators anything concrete to act on. The only physical lead was the red Nissan Altima caught on surveillance footage leaving the scene, but investigators could not match it to an owner. Not yet. Weeks passed, then months. The case went cold. Nafia's mother, Shirina, later told reporters directly, "We strongly believe that Nassau Police Department did not do their job in the beginning." And the family had real reasons to feel that way. At one point, investigators subjected Nafia's own father to a polygraph test. Her father, a man who had held his daughter while acid was still burning through her skin, the family found it deeply hurtful and a sign of broader missteps in how the investigation had been handled from the very start. For the first month after the attack, the case received almost no media attention beyond local reporting. And then Padma Lakshmi posted. She had known the Ikram family for over a decade through her professional relationship with Nafia's father, and in April 2021, she went on Instagram and posted a video urging her more than 1 million followers to share any information they had and to support the GoFundMe campaign that had been set up to cover Nafia's mounting medical costs. The effect was immediate. Donations surged. National media picked up the story. A GoFundMe campaign that had been quietly circulating suddenly raised over $500,000 from approximately 13,000 donors around the world. People left messages on that page that Nafia said she actually read during her recovery. and that helped carry her. Through some of the hardest days, Lakshmi publicly called for a hate crime investigation and shared the surveillance footage widely. Nassau County legislator Carrie Salages organized press conferences and pushed to increase the reward funding. Congresswoman Laura Gillen began advocating for the family after Nafia's mother reached out to her directly for help moving the investigation forward. The reward climbed from an initial $10,000 to $20,000, then $40,000 with FBI matching, and eventually to $50,000 by January 2023. But the case did not move. What the public did not know during those years was that while the investigation appeared from the outside to have completely stalled, detectives were still working, and Nafia was doing what she had always done, moving forward, even when it cost her something to do it. She described what those years were actually like. My therapist actually asked me that question. She asked me, she's like, what if these people are never found? My parents and I were even saying, like, you know, I'll be able to go out when they get caught. Like, it was literally, I was living my life based on when these people get caught, I'm going to do this. Let that land for a second. She was putting her entire life on hold, waiting for an arrest that was not coming, and she recognized that, and she made the decision to stop doing it. A year after the attack, she posted a photo on her own Instagram, herself from behind, curly hair, red coat, with the caption, "It's not about how you look. It's about having a beautiful soul and positive energy. Therefore, don't ever let anyone steal your shine." 1 year out from one of the most traumatic things a person can survive. And she was out here choosing herself, period. But the emotional weight of those years was real, and she did not pretend otherwise. She talked about the shame that crept in as a young woman, wondering why she had not seen it coming, wondering who among her friends she could even trust. She talked about the undirected anger of not knowing for certain who was responsible. She talked about developing a phobia of red cars, the color of the getaway vehicle, so severe that her therapist suggested she begin wearing red clothing to gradually reclaim the association. Her entire family started wearing red alongside her in solidarity, which is why, if you look at photographs of the Ikram family at public appearances during those years, they are almost always dressed in red. And then, at the 3 year mark, Nafia stood in front of cameras and said something that captured exactly where things stood. I feel like the investigation is exactly where it was on March 17th of 2021. That's exactly how I feel. She had undergone at least 8 surgeries by that point. Doctors told her there were many more to come. She was managing daily pain, attending regular procedures to keep her airway functional, living with PTSD, and still, somehow, still standing. Girl. But here is where the story shifts. In late 2025, a Crime Stoppers tip
It's a big
pointed
shock, and right
investigators
now I'm
toward a
trying to
name.
just
And
decompress
when
and
detectives
figure out
went
how I'm
back
feeling
through old
emotionally.
interview transcripts, they found something they had overlooked years earlier. Shakil Coe had once casually mentioned knowing someone with a nickname strikingly similar to a rap persona, Young Based Prince. That small detail led them straight to Terrell Campbell, Coe's old high school friend from Nazareth Regional. From there, everything began to fall into place. Detectives working with the NYPD located a red 2015 Nissan Altima registered to a Campbell family member. parked right outside his Brooklyn address. A Facebook photo from December 2020 showed Campbell standing in front of a matching vehicle. License plate reader data and traffic records placed that same vehicle in the vicinity of the crime scene on the night of March 17th, 2021. And when investigators obtained warrants for Campbell's Google account, what they found removed almost all doubt. In the minutes immediately following the attack on Nafia Ikram, Terrell Campbell had searched sulfuric acid remover. Sulfuric acid on car seat. How do I remove sulfuric acid from my car's fabric? Can you recover from a sulfuric acid attack? Those searches told investigators not only that he had been present, but that the substance had made contact with the vehicle he was driving. His own searches placed him at the scene. Oh, so now it gets worse. 2 years after the attack, Campbell, performing under the name Young Based Prince, uploaded a song to YouTube called Obsidian. In that song, he rapped about moving through the night like a hired operative, about having someone's face meet a chemical substance. District Attorney Ann Donnelly, when she addressed the media, explained the song's title directly, noting that obsidian is the rock formed when volcanic lava cools rapidly. She called the song sickening, cruel, and brazen, and she made the point that Campbell had taken what he allegedly did to Nafia and reduced it to a lyric in an attempt to build a rap career. That song, which was still live on YouTube at the time of his arrest, became one of the central pillars of the prosecution's case. He thought he had gotten away with it. He put it in a song. He posted it on the internet for the world to see. And he had no idea that years later, those same words would be read back to him in a courtroom. I said what I said. The internet never forgets. With Campbell now identified, investigators could draw a complete line back to Coe through everything they shared, their history, their communication records, their movements on the day of the attack. After Campbell's arrest, prosecutors alleged that Coe, when interviewed, admitted to investigators that he had wanted something devastating to happen to Nafia. His defense team contests that, but the pieces were already assembled. The cell phone records showing Coe and Campbell in contact throughout the day of the attack, the alleged fake Snapchat account, the alleged taunting messages sent to Nafia after the attack, the shared history between the two men that placed them in the same orbit for years. And there was one more thing pressing down on this entire case: the clock. The 5-year statute of limitations for assault in New York was approaching fast. Investigators and prosecutors were not just building a case, they were racing against a deadline. On February 9th, 2026, approximately 5 weeks before that window would close, Terrell Campbell was arrested. He was arraigned the following morning before Judge Joy Watson, charged with 2 counts of first-degree assault, criminal possession of a weapon, and unlawful possession of noxious materials. Remanded without bail. When reporters approached him outside the courthouse and asked if he had anything to say, Campbell said, "Nothing." His father, who had been present in the courtroom, responded to the press with a gesture that needed no words. But there was still one more arrest to come, and for Nafia...
Do you have a message for Nafia's family?
On March 24th, 2026, 7 days after the 5-year anniversary of the attack, Shaquille Coe was arrested in Brooklyn, charged by grand jury indictment with 2 counts of first-degree assault, criminal possession of a weapon, and unlawful possession of noxious materials, remanded without bail, brought before Judge Joy Watson. His arrest came technically past the standard statute of limitations window, a legal reality that D.A. Donnelly acknowledged directly while expressing confidence that applicable exceptions would hold. In that courtroom, as prosecutors laid out the allegations against him, the fake Snapchat account, the coordination with Campbell, the cell phone records, the taunting messages, Coe shook his head, mouthed the words, "I'm innocent." His attorney, Kenneth Montgomery, entered a not guilty plea on his behalf and told reporters outside that his client was, quote, shell-shocked, adding that Coe was set to graduate and become a nurse the following month. Nafia was in that courtroom, and what happened inside her in that moment, she described herself, "When I saw him sitting there and I was crying because I was shocked. It was like I was crying for the hurt, and then I got so angry. I was just looking at him, thinking of like how much I hate him. But then I said, you know what? I'm not giving him that power over me anymore, and that's why I came here." She walked out of that courthouse and she did not hold back. She called Coe a demon. She said the fact that he believed he had the right to do what he allegedly did, and then allegedly constructed a fake persona to make her feel both protected and deceived at the same time, told her everything she needed to know about who he was. "You're delusional and you're diabolical," were her exact
He's a
words.
demon,
And
number
then
one.
she said
And
something
number
that
two,
reframed the
the
entire
fact that he
5 years in
thinks
a
that he
single
had the right
breath.
to do that, you're
I'm hoping that
delusional
the
and you're
way he felt
diabolical.
about karma, how he said, "I'm going to take karma into my own hands," that kind of thing, and thought he could do this. You reap what you sow, that right there. After 5 years of surgeries, silence, and waiting, that was her answer. As of April the 2026, both Coe and Campbell have pleaded not guilty and remain in custody without bail. No plea deals, no trial dates set, no verdicts yet. The statute of limitations question surrounding Coe's arrest remains the most significant legal hurdle ahead, with his next court date scheduled for April 20th, 2026. And as with any case still moving through the courts, both men are presumed innocent until proven otherwise. But whatever the courts ultimately decide, one chapter of this story is already closed. Nassau County legislator Carrier Salages, who had stood beside the Ikram family at press conferences across 5 years, wrote publicly about Nafia in the days following the arrests. She said, despite the many surgeries, despite the significant pain, despite the isolation, despite the misrepresentations, her faith was never broken. She always expressed her deep faith for Allah. From her, I learned that empathy welcomes you into someone else's world. And that is really what this story is when you strip everything else away. It is not just a story about acid or obsession or how long it can take a justice system to move. It is a story about what a person chooses to do with the years between the worst moment of their life and the moment things finally shift. Nafia chose to keep going, not in a loud, performative way, in the quiet, daily, grueling way, the way that does not make headlines, waking up and going to another surgery, reading messages from strangers on a GoFundMe page when the nights were too hard, walking around the block when her therapist said she needed to start reclaiming the outside world, wearing red, not because it was easy, but because she refused to let fear keep owning a color. She said it herself. You are not your beliefs, and you are not your trauma. You can always take back what's yours because it's not what happens to you, it's your reaction. And let me tell you something, her name, Nafia, means the useful, the beneficial, the prosperous one in Arabic, not the victim, not the survivor, the prosperous one. And she has lived every single bit of that, not because life was fair to her, because it was not, but because she refused to let the worst thing that ever happened to her become the last thing she ever did. That is the part no acid, no courtroom, and no verdict can ever touch. If this story moved you, Nafia's GoFundMe supporting her ongoing medical recovery is still active. The link is in the description. And if you want to do something beyond watching, that is where to go.